it going, y'all? It's your boy Raymond back up in here with another review video, and today we have got a review that I wasn't expecting to do. I was trying to get around to it, but I didn't really have too much time when it initially came out because there was just so much other stuff going on that came out as well. So, but here we are, and I wanted to talk about this new Crumb album, Ice Melt. Now, Crumb is sort of like this small American indie rock band that sort of hailed from Boston and then moved down to LA later on. And so they basically just all met in college and stuff, and they had been making music for the past like 3 or 4 years now, dropping some singles here or there, and then dropping a little mini EP entitled Lock It back in like 2017, I want to say, which I really enjoyed. My friend had been telling me about them for like a little while now, and I was really interested because they have he was telling me that they have a really cool style of indie rock and psychedelic rock that they bring to the table. And so I listened to some of their earlier EP stuff and their singles, and I really enjoyed it. And then I listened to their first album back in 2019, Jinx, which I thought was a decent sort of, presentation of what their sound was, but I felt like there wasn't really a direction to that album that I saw the band sort of improving on what they had already given us with the EPs and then giving us the full project. It didn't really feel like it had a specific creative direction that they were presenting. It just kind of felt like a wrap-up of all of the EPs and all of the stuff that they had made previously. But nonetheless, I was still really excited to see what they would bring to the table with their new album, and I wanted to see how well the band would progress and how they would tackle a lot of the recording difficulties that they had, because supposedly they recorded this whole thing in their house because of the COVID lockdown stuff, no studio time whatsoever. Thankfully, I can say that it is actually a great sounding album. I think what's cool about Ice Melt is that it has this almost like summery feel, but in a way where it's like a little chilling. Ice Melt sort of feels like you're licking an ice cream cone and then it spills on you and you get that like cold rush of coldness like going through your body, but it's like 90 degrees outside. It's that summery feel. It's really warm and fuzzy and in your face, but it has some of like the production has like this little like cold-hearted rough texture to it that I think makes it more psychedelic, and I think adds a little bit of an atmosphere to a lot of the tracks here. The whole album is 10 tracks. It's really watertight, I would say. There's not really too much there's not really like anything at all that I would say you could add to it, and there's not really much that you could take out that would make it, I guess, like any more complete, if that makes any sense. A lot of the tracks here, they all flow and groove together really well. They have a lot of distinction to them. Like I can probably, if I went back to the album, I would probably remember what every single song sounded like just by reading the track list, which I think is really cool and I think really has a certain sustainability to them. Some of my favorites being especially like B&R or Black and Red, Balloon, Trophy, Gone as well, which I think has a really interesting start, especially with those samples of people leaving like voicemails in the background, and then it kind of swells into the beginning of the track. I think it creates a really interesting atmosphere that sets up for the rest of the song. Throughout the album, it deals with it creates this sort of darker atmosphere that I wasn't really expecting to get, especially with how warm a lot of their previous work had been. It's still definitely that kind of texture and quality about it here, what with the drowned out guitar melodies and pedals, Leela's like lead vocals, which are usually always filtered through a lot of these different vocal effects, and a lot of these echoey, chambery effects that create a lot of psychedelic feels, and there's a lot of echoing, and the mix as well has allowed it to create a more psychedelic atmosphere with it. A lot of the vocals panning left to right, it feeling really distorted. The drums almost feel like electronic just with how buried in effects that they seem, but at the same time it's mixed so well that everything seems to balance themselves out really well. Leela's vocals throughout like this whole thing, I think she has such an interesting dynamic when it comes to her singing, and also when it comes to the way that she structures a lot of the lyrics here. I think what Crumb does better than a lot of the indie rock groups that are out right now is that they know how to make a song feel disturbingly catchy in a way. Like there's certain sounds, you know, obviously with like the harsh distorted guitars on some of the tracks, especially on like LA, or even on like the opener with those really weird creepy samples that are or those really creepy sound effects that are building up to the sort of like the midpoint of the song. I think it's cool how her singing almost feels like it's like a deep whisper almost, and then her flow on top of that, it's almost as if she's talking throughout the lyrics and throughout the different passages. And then, you know, the song structures as well allow for a lot of these really catchy choruses, and also these really bright and sparkly moments, especially on the chorus parts, and especially on the repeating lines. Whoever is on bass and whoever is on guitar is doing a great job of making these really interesting string passages that allow for these build-ups to the choruses and to the hooks, and then make like an explosion of sound somehow going into a lot of the middle portions of the tracks here. I think a good example of this on Trophy, there's a really cool bass line in the background where it's just like boom boom ba dun 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 boom boom ba. Like the bass line in Trophy I think is really cool, and it's just repeating the whole time, but it's so like ear grabbing that it makes you follow throughout the whole track. And then Leela repeats the chorus about like 3 or 4 times at least throughout like the whole track, and it just has like this really interesting swell to it, especially the way the bass is played. It has like, it's almost like as if you're watching like a wave current while you're listening to the track. That's the feeling I get whenever I hear it. And then we get like Balloon, which I think is also an interesting track, where it's almost like this like jumpy indie pop song where it's like really vibrant, it's really driving, and especially with the drum beat, it's really up tempo, which I think is really cool. And we get like these really interesting signature indie rock synth sounds that are sort of descending from like these top notes going all the way down the scale and stuff like that. The thing that has sort of impressed me the most about this album, because it did come out about 2 weeks ago now, is that I've been able to return to it pretty much almost like every other day, because I just think a lot of the tracks here have that longevity and have that replayability to them, especially songs like Trophy or Balloon, BNR, LA, even Gone. I think a lot of them have that catchiness, and they have that resonance to them that I think just have me going back and listening to the album once more and listening to those tracks more. And so that's why I wanted to talk about this album. In terms of a score, I think I'd probably give it about an 8 out of 10, which I think is pretty solid. It's a solid album, and for any of you guys who are into indie rock or psych rock, or, you know, even these new elements of like jazz and almost math rock, I would go ahead and check them out, because I think they have a really cool sound to them, and I think they're one of the indie rock bands that are out right now that I think do this style of music the best, I would say. And since they're just starting out still, I can't wait to see what they have in the future as well. But yeah, that was Crumb's Ice Melt. Be sure to check it out for yourselves and let me know down in the comments what you guys think about it. Be sure to like and subscribe down below. Obviously, it's a Thursday night, so there's going to be a lot of stuff that's going to be dropping tomorrow, including that St. Vincent album that I mentioned. Also, the Georgia Smith album is also dropping tomorrow, and probably a couple other things here or there that I forgot about. But yeah, so be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you guys can keep up on that. Thank you guys for watching. I definitely appreciate it, and I will see you guys in the next video.